Thanks, casual economist. Struggle streaming on a Tuesday. Give me one if you can hear me. Give me one if you can hear me. I just hit the button. I'm a little slow today. Uh, appreciate it. I was working a little bit. I'm a little behind at work, doing a little too much. So you see it on there. Contract legal review. We're gonna talk about that from a cybersecurity perspective. I do that a lot. Um, it's okay to be honest. I actually miss engineering and building stuff, but the crazy part is the less I touch a computer, the more I make, which is which is kind of weird. Um, if y'all got any questions, you know how we do it. Just drop it in the box. I'm gonna peek at my phone a little bit. I gotta upgrade my computer. I got one screen, so you know how we do it. Anything cybersecurity, tech related. Oh, I saw that Chat GPT 4 today. That is nice. I'm gonna have to do a live stream on that. That was super nice. So people dropping in. Once again, you can drop any questions, tech, cybersecurity. Once again, we're hitting that GRC. This is some salute wire dog. Glad you can join me. Let me give everybody a shot. Casual, always here. Day one. Welcome, Freeman in the house. Let's see. Winslow's in the house. Ooh, I don't want to mess your name up. I can need mine. I'm probably messing that up. Shout out to everybody. So part of cybersecurity is contract reviews. You see it up there, terms and conditions, and we're going to talk about their NDAs. Anytime I do a security review, my job previous to this one, what's up, Game Over? I did a ton of we got them in the RPs, terms and conditions, because vendors are trying to get their products into. I work for a large state agency, so we have to review each one of those products for security requirements. Is this part one of a contract review, or did I miss the course? No, I'm just talking about a high level. Let me know. I'm thinking about doing one online. We just talking about it in general, Devin. Nope, you didn't miss a course. I'm thinking about doing a course on this because Gerald from Simply Cyber has his beginning GRC. Shout out to my man. I've been following him as combo courses, does a little more NIST related. So I might do something kind of in the middle of there. AK facts, man. Brother struggle security brought me here. Yeah, shout out. I appreciate it. Yeah, I always enjoy talking to my man Gabe. We kind of debate over DoD Stigs, but he's more red team and I'm more blue team. So I think we always bond well together. He does obviously some of the, he I don't want to dox him. I think he said he works for one of the big consulting firms, and I work for a large state agency, and I work with those consulting firms. So I think we pair together. Once again, he's red team, super good. I think I'm super good on blue team. So he's attacking, I'm defending, right? We do a little each other stuff, but so I appreciate that. Oh, yeah, me for sure. Okay, cool. Appreciate it. I do not have any courses yet. I'm gonna do one this summer. Shout out to Kev Tech's been challenging me to do a course. A lot of people got courses out there, so I'm gonna do my first one's be free. Keep it techie did his free Linux, so I'm gonna do a free course, Devin. I'm sure it's gonna be in GRC. So I just got to figure out what that's gonna be. For there's some new people. Shout out to Struggle Security. I taught 10 years at a community college, so we had a little disagreement a year ago, so I no longer teach there. I don't let students tell me what to do. I'm old and grumpy. But no, I taught for 10 years. I taught intro to computer security. If you go on my page, you go to the front page. I have lectures I did for intro to security, cybersecurity, intro to forensics. So I have two kind of lecture courses. I didn't, do questions and quizzes like I normally do. But if you go on my page, there's those are two lectures I've done on there. Let's see what it can say. I'm new to all of this information. Just here to learn fundamentals on the right path to go from IT support to the next level. Oh, we can definitely chop it up. IT support. So yeah, so you can check out Tech G, Master IT, get you some certifications, get you some little experience. Are you on a help desk? When you say IT support, is that help desk? So let's check out these. This is what we're going to kind of go over today from a cybersecurity perspective. You don't have to be technical. You have to be technical, kind of the legal, state laws, and those type of things. So today we're going to hit discounts. People don't know, if you buy more than $5 million worth of AWS services, you can actually negotiate contracts with attorneys to get your saving rates lower, because obviously you spending 5 million, right? That's tech sales. Check out my man Black Ice. But those were lawyers, and you're going to be in a cybersecurity because I used to work for Department of Revenue. They report to the IRS. So anytime I review stuff, I got to make sure we're passing IRS audit. So that's kind of one of my specialties, right? So even when you're doing discounts, terms and conditions, non-disclosures, compliance, HIPAA, NIST, state laws. So when you're doing that from a cybersecurity perspective, right? Once again, we're going to look at a few of these in the slides, right? State laws, privacy, GDPR, CCPA is another California. New York is trying to outdo California with their privacy laws, right? Each state usually has their own breach notification. So you as a cybersecurity professional, when you reviewing architectures, contracts, RFPs, because people are trying to sell you software, right? You got to do security reviews on those. Risk assessment and supply chain is a big thing with NIST. Kaseya's got hacked, remember, with the oil. So now you got to review our software to make sure, hopefully, they're secure, right? So that's one way, as the kids say, I give my bag, because when you review every software that comes into a company or agencies, if you miss some, right, that company could get you hacked. So you have a lot of responsibilities. So you're going to be talking to legal, CIOs, purchasing, financials, right? Because, and I'm going to talk to a CFO I used to work for, a brother, super sharp, is he's got to say security's got to sign off before we buy it, right? So if they like software, through the RP process, you got the cost, you got security, you got the business components. Usually they put their requirements in, then legal. So each one of those four components got to work together to bring software and stuff in. And I think from a cybersecurity perspective, you're not a lawyer, but you talk to lawyers. A lot of people think I'm a lawyer because I've been doing this for 15 years, looking at NIST, looking at RPs, looking at different contracts, statement of work, service level agreements, master service level agreements, right? So all of those, once again, you putting your security stamp on it to get software in, or you're using other people's software, right? So you want to make sure they're at your same security level so they don't get you hacked, right? So my man was I've been told by my tech advisor, forget studying in the CSA, go straight into security and cloud. Um, I don't disagree with that, Kim, but when you do, and I do buffer these security, I've got 4 AWS certifications. The basis of security is networking. You don't have to get a cert, but you do need to understand subnets. Even when you were in, I'm an AWS fanboy. So when you're in the VPC, you have to configure your network. And most people are hybrid. So you got to make your on-prem network looks like one network with AWS. So you do need some networking background. Now you might not need CNA, but you're gonna need a basic understanding of network. Because the first thing is controlling your traffic, make sure it's subnet, making sure you ain't got traffic going out on the internet and wrapping back in. So you need to understand the basis of networking. We can sign off on it. Yep, facts. Devin, I'm surprised. I'm in lawyers at least every other day. We're in a meeting talking about that. Yeah, because security, I'm gonna say security, but legal's got to do the final sign off, you know. But no, that's true, and I'm super surprised about that. If you'd asked me 30 years ago when I started, would I be talking to lawyers? I'd have said no. You can, but you out. Yep. Shout out me even at the cloud level. Yeah, because once again, I've got 4 AWS networking, and you got to set up your 3-tier, your 4-tier, and AWS. You got to have your private and your public subnets. What can talk to what? Then you got your database subnet. It shouldn't talk to the web subnet. It should always go through the app. Your admin should VPN to a private subnet, then go to the database subnet. So you got to control all your traffic. Yeah, I gotta get better at Azure. We use Azure by AWS. Yep, because you're gonna need to be multi-cloud. So now you're right. I'm starting with AWS and I'm going the other way. Like I said, I'm studying for my CISP, which it's not going well. So as soon as I get that, hopefully I'm gonna get back on my AWS. But I'm gonna at least make sure I lab every Sunday, and I probably start labbing online. And we talk about that. One of those is a privacy engineer, where you take what we talk about and you engineer that in AWS, right, to make sure you don't have data leakage or data spillage. But let's get on with it. Let's get on with it. So, real quick, AWS says EWP. Once again, you negotiate your discounts. I just put that in there because you see legal staff. Once you go over a certain dollar amount with AWS, Azure, or Google, you can have your lawyers get you a bigger discount. Two, depending on what domain you're in. A lot of times, if you're in a domain they want you to be in, they give you a bigger discount because they're going to use you as a reference account to get to other companies and vendors. So you can actually get bigger discounts if you're in a certain domain. Once again, if you got fast growth on Amazon S3, EC2, RDS, you get growth, compute, and usage domain. If you understand your workloads, they got a marketplace with apps. See at the bottom, maximize your leverage, demonstrate the value your business will bring to AWS in the term of a long-term purchase commitment. Of course, the longer the term, you get a bigger discount, but legal staff negotiates that. If you hit certain threshold, you understand your markets, you can consolidate your spending. A lot of companies have multiple organizations that's not under one umbrella. So if you use AWS organizations and set up your corporate tree, you get spending discounts because each one of those division rolls up into a master organization with a master contract. And once again, you get that consolidated spending, right? But legal negotiates that, right? Cybersecurity makes sure it's set up right, it's secure. But when you talk about the thresholds, your domain, that's really negotiated by legal. She want to save your money, so I put my little my little spot. You saving money, right? So, but all that gets once again gets negotiated by legal. At a certain part, as an architecture, you can set up your organization. You can get bigger stuff. You can auto scale when you're not using it, have it scale down so you can save money. But the big companies, Twitter was spending like something crazy, like 10 million a month on AWS. It's something crazy like that. So with those big commitments, you can get big dollars. Let's see, I can lab in a Cisco packet using skills for our websites. Yep. And that's really, and you can actually put a Cisco router inside AWS and make it look like one network. I'm trying to lab after work, but I also need to find a new job too. I'm burnt. Oh yeah, facts, man. Facts. Be careful with that, man. I'm so burnt out. I need a vacation, man. But I understand you trying to get it, man. Apply companies or facts. They're still hiring. I get a ton of calls. I interviewed today for a second position and just went for congratulations. I just went from contract to FTE at the main attention. Congratulations, man. Shout out to my man. Shout out to your cloud. Shout out to man. I know who he is, but I won't give him away. Shout out to him. He does a little everything, little AWS content, a little networking content. So shout out to him. We're out here, what's going on, Professor? Just out here grinding, trying to get it, man. We're gonna just talk a little bit about security and legal reviews and how that works. Once again, I I do it. It's not the most exciting, but you can make a good back. So, what is a master service agreement? Once again, when you do those master service agreements, you bidding with work with vendors and RPs, they give you a master service agreement. And part of that is, and we're going to just kind of flow through there, security is going to be in there. Once again, with finance, legal, and the business, right? So an MSA is a contract that outlines terms and conditions for a long-term business relationships between two parties of in the information technology. Typically, these two parties are service providers, such as an IT consulting, and a client, such as a business. So the MSA sets the foundations for relationship between the two parties, scope of work, which we're going to talk about, SOW, statement of work, is going to be in there too, timelines, pricing, and other important terms and conditions. It also establishes obligations and responsibilities of both parties. The MSA is often used in IT projects that are complex or long-term in nature, where both parties anticipate services of smaller engagements over a period of time. The MSA can save time and effort by limiting needs to negotiate individual contracts, right? So if you're a big company like AWS, you're gonna have different services, different business units. They're gonna have their third party consultants they use for their. So you have a master service agreement. I should have made that a little clearer. Responsibility, roles, and responsibilities, services to be provided, detailed pricing structure, termination, indemnification. If they get you hacked, you're not responsible for, right? You're going to indemnify yourself, right? Dispute resolution. If y'all don't agree, what do you owe? Who pays what? Do you have to pay to a certain quarter? Do you have to pay the whole contract if you break it, right? So all those are in an MSA checklist. And the part I should have found one in there is cybersecurity is in there. If we're HIPAA, we got to make sure because everybody's connecting with APIs, right? So we got to make sure the API language, and that's usually in a statement of work, and we're going to get there too. But in MSA, you do what compliance are you? HIPAA, FERPA, education, right? All of that's got to be in the MSA, right? So it's not uncommon for security to get a piece of MSA, what level of security they want you to be. Like I said, I'm always reading those. It's not the most exciting thing, but it's definitely needed. And a lot of times is legal's gonna call you in the room. I'm on these big calls, it's like 30 people on there. Then they get to security. Okay, what security's good? What's your security level? What's your breach notification? They say if we get hacked, they're gonna let us know in 72 hours. IRS put 275, so we got to be known in 24 hours, right? So now we got to negotiate, right? We need 24. Y'all say 72 if you want our business, right? You need, but all this has to be in a contract, MSA statement of work, so both sides can agree on that, right? We don't want to be guessing. And once again, cybersecurity plays a huge part in that. Like I said, I'm amazed, and I work for big companies that they always bid on RFPs, which is request for proposal. So they're trying to get work from states, government, and feds. So all that stuff has security language in it. So you got to read it to make sure it's on par with what you need, even both sides. Even if you're the provider or you the consumer, you still want to make sure there's no gray areas and security, because if something happens and you're not in compliance, you could get a big fine, right? So that's why security pays a big role in there. So once again, if you got any questions, just throw them in there. I just decided to talk about contracts and legal reviews, right? I just think it's something people don't talk about it from a compliance and GRC perspective. You can't get the contract right, you can't do business, right? Isn't that, man? Yeah. If you could do a SLA without a service level agreement, I think I got that in there too. Did I put an SLA in there? If you're small, you can do a SLA. MSA is a master, and a lot of times the service level agreement isn't a master. If once again, if it's a huge company and they got multiple service and multiple products, they have a master. Then you have a service level agreement for specific API, specific business. Like Oracle, you can do database, you can do web logic. They got package software for construction companies, Devin. So you have a master agreement. And if you're using one of those sub products, you will have a SLA for the standard sub products. Uh, okay. Yep, you can use if the company's big once again and they got a portfolio of products, you don't want to do repeat yourself in each SLA if you're doing once again different APIs, if they got database or multiple stuff, you would do a master, then you would do a SLA for each individual product. Because some of that stuff is going to be the same. Like if you're doing incident response, if they get hacked, most of their products, if it's 24, 48 hours, or 72, that's going to be same for each API and product. So that being a master, right? Then I sound like a Lord. Then a lot of your stuff from the master is going to flow down to your SLA, right? So if you don't talk about breach notifications in the master, it's going to flow down to each individual SLA service level agreement. Let me know if that makes sense, Devin. It's late and I'm rambling. Let's see. Let's keep. So statement of work. I'm sure everybody pretty much heard that term. And information IT is a document that outlines the scope of objectives and deliverables, timelines and requirements from products and initiatives, a roadmap or blueprint. SOW typically includes the following elements: scope of work, project timeline, roles and responsibility, budget, resources, and quality standards. Right, and usually what comes along with that, it's in there, the timeline, right? You get the schedule, you can figure out um, what's dependent on what can you do in parallel. You might need to make up time, right? So all that be on your project plan, your Gantt chart. A lot of people, we're not doing waterfall anymore, though. We got our agile, right? So we got our project, we got our stickies, we got our backlog, right? But from a statement of work, all that needs to spell out, because once again, you could be spending millions of dollars. The last project I worked on was tax system. It was $80 million, and it took them 5 years to implement it. So, and once again, there was a big cybersecurity component because we reported to the IRS, right? So we had to give them a statement of work and a master service level agreement of what we needed to do. And the cool thing is, I don't when I actually got blocked. We wanted to do a certain level of security. They pushed back, went to the CIO, and he told us to stand down. So you don't win them all. But the thing I like to do from a cybersecurity perspective is I'm gonna put in an email said I asked to do it. Now, if you tell me no, I always salute the flag. But if you got hacked, I'm gonna pull out that email and say, I told you so. Right. So you just want to document that thing, right? And I always remember, and it took me years to figure this out. The businesses make the decision, right? So even though I think cybersecurity, you have to do it, we negligent. If the business say no, we're not going to do it, it's their risk to accept, right? It's not security's risk to accept. We give that to the CIO, who gives that to the president, right? So they make those decisions, and sometimes I won't say I'm not happy, but I'll be like in my mind, that's the wrong decision, but it's their decision to make. All right. And here's statement of work. Once again, the milestones: introduction, purpose, scope, where, task, milestones, delivery schedules, standards and testing, success, requirements, payments, others, and close. Last list of deliverable. Yep, standard and testing. What they don't have in there, success. Sometimes you do a test and it doesn't meet our standards or our requirements, right? Then we need to roll back and get that reprogrammed or re-architectured or whatever, right? So sometimes you're not going to have success, right? But you you would put those tasks back in the deliverables, get them rescheduled, right? And get them tested and hopefully success and move forward, right? So these are the things from SOW you need. And if you work for big companies, that's what they do. Or if you work for the companies, this is what you need to ask from your contractors, right? Or even your staff, right? What is the statement of work? The CIO is gonna come to you and it's like, hey, well, what are y'all doing? Right. So a lot of times in charter, that's your statement of work for you to work on this particular deliverables, new functionality, or trying to get rid of tech debt, by upgrading your software, right? All that's a statement of work and schedule that I always call them the big bosses. They want to see that. Let's see. Got my yep. CIS, that's cool. CYSA Plus and CISP. I think they on the DoD 8570. I think they're both third level 3. So yep. Shout out to the CNA. Nah, we were just discussing that. Somebody else was bringing that up, and I always tell people networking is the one of the bases of security. Networking or programming, I always think that's the basis. Pick one. If you can do both, cool, but you don't need to do both. So just pick one. Let's see. Are you familiar with? Yep, I just found it. Oh yeah. Yeah, I always use Qualsys, even if I always use the free one because they got the SSL check. So the first thing I do with a vendor when they come in is do the SSL check. If you don't get an A, I tell you your product is crap. So I always do the Qualsys SSL test. I actually did a video where I went to Panera Bread. I actually walked through. They actually got a C. Then it showed you their web server. It showed you the version. I actually showed, which I probably should have. I showed you the CVEs to hack that version of the web server, right? CVEs are vulnerabilities. So if you use Qualsys, if they don't hide their server, which I would say 50%, it's half and half of that. It'll tell you their web server. If it gives you their version, you can look up the CVEs for that version because most companies aren't up to date. So appreciate that. Hit that like button. I appreciate that. But let's see. I was wouldn't be sufficient, though it seems nearly impossible to break in a blue team. I, well, I've been doing it forever. It is a lot of times is you need to get somewhere, then that's how you break in. But you're right. If you just come, if you coming off the street, I'm just lucky because I've been in the game so long. But yeah, it's hard to get in. And two, as I would say, uh combo courses, he's focusing on NIST, and I'm a NIST guy. So NIST means you're doing federal level compliance. So from that perspective, and I got a ton of compliance videos on this, it's a little easier to get in when you understand NIST. Right. Once again, I specialize in IRS. They report to NIST, so they kind of go hand in hand. Oh yeah, Qualsys is big time. Oh yeah. Qualsys has been in the game a lot. I will put them in the middle. The bigger companies use Red Eye, FireEye, AppScan from IBM. But Qualsys from the medium play, super good, super good. Oh yes, my only issue with Splunk Winslow, which is not big, is I was at a large government agency and they gave their Splunk license back. They do that ingestion charges. If you got like a bunch of logs, man, your bill's gonna be astronomical. So only big companies gonna have Splunk. Now they got their free stuff to so you can get educated, but little companies don't do Splunk. That's the only thing. So it's but yep, I do Tenable. Because when we do scans on infrastructures, that's actually what the IRS uses, Tenable. Yeah, Metasploit. I use the Nmap a ton because a lot of times I'm trying to make sure all your ports are closed. So if I'm inside your network, I'll just start scanning ports and just let it go, right? I'll figure out what your subnet ranges are. Then I'll go, then I'm only expect to see the ports that you're using, right? A lot of times people be having all these ports open, right? Which is makes your attack surface bigger, right? Which means people have more area to attack. So let's keep rolling. Non-disclosure. Most times when because you're in security, you getting to see people vulnerabilities. You get to see their architectural diagram. You get to see, like we talked, if they're a couple versions behind, you can see CVEs for very large organizations. So they're going to sign an NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement. And information technology is a legal contract used to protect confidential or proprietary information shared between two parties. This type of agreement is used in the IT industry for safeguard trade secrets, intellectual property, and other sensitive information that may be critical to the success of the business. When you see people's, especially system security plan and their architecture, I always want to see a picture, right? You can definitely see how to attack the organization, right? So We just read the high parts. Obligation of the recipient, exceptions to the confidentiality, terms and terminations, and remedies for the breach, right? So usually when I sign an NDA, I always give it to our legal staff to review. So it tells you what I can review. And I've looked at some very big tax software companies through VDI. It's cool because you learn a lot because as you review them, you ask them questions. So I've seen some very, very impressive system security plans. So that kind of makes it cool. And you always learning. Any good guidelines learning supply chain framework? Um, I would say NIST. Because even though it's in the supply chain, I just review it like I do any security architecture, right? Because I'm reviewing it because I need it at the same level of the organization. Once again, if I'm doing IRS and you're my vendor, right, your supply chain's got to be at the same security level. So if you're doing FISMA for DoD, the supply chain has to do FISMA. So for me, I just do it really similar to a regular audit. The only thing you have to be careful of, and it took me a decade to figure this out. This guy really has to get. I'm gonna interview him. He's a cool guy from NSA. You got to be careful when you're doing supply chain because I'm reviewing them, but if they got a finding, I, I don't. I want to guide them how to fix it. If I tell them how to fix it, right, then my organization is taking responsibility for their security, right? So it's a weird balancing act, right? I can deny how they're setting it up, but I want to give them options because if I tell them how to do it and they get hacked, they can come back and blame me or my company, right? So that's the balancing act with supply chain. And I used to always want to tell people how to do it, and he's like, "That's not your company because if you tell them something, they get them hacked. They can come back and say you said this, right?" So what I do is I say this vulnerability you have, how you fix it is not acceptable, right? Then I might give them 3 or 4 options, but I never tell them how to fix it, right? Sometimes I tell them where to look for them to fix it, but I physically never tell because you can get sued that way. That's what legal hours tells me, right? So so you got to be careful on that you're not taking over their program of their security, then that cause them to get hacked, and they can come back and sue you, right? So it took me a decade to figure that out. How do you get in IT so early in your career? By accident. A true story. I was a consultant at DoD for 3 years. I kind of rose my way to the rank, and I was over web. I was over the web administration. We were using Tomcat Apache. This one guy now works for AWS. We were setting up and doing findings. Then DOD was getting waxed by China, so they brought out security professionals and they trained everybody, government employees, consultants. So I just they trained me in NIST, FISMA, and STIGs as they're hardening. You'll hear me and Gabe go back and forth on STIGs, but just different hardening techniques. So that's how I just kind of lucked up in it. So next thing I know, I'm hardening Apache, hardening Tomcat, hardening Oracle database. I was doing Java back then too, helping the Java team. So I was hardening all that for DoD regulations again, and I just kind of took off. Next thing I know, I'm like, oh, I'm in cybersecurity, and it's hot, and I'm making 6 figures, and I'm eating well. So just kind of fell into it on a humble, Ken. It wasn't like a master plan. I programmed. I got well at it. I became a DBA, then I became a web admin and application admin because I was compiling Java, putting them on there, testing them. So then they put me on those teams, and I met with some cool guys, and just kind of got better and better. And the next thing I know, I was purple team in it, which is web application security, and I just got in it. So do you think it will get to a point that people are doing all this pen testing utilizing SaaS that only belongs to organization so that the NDA becomes more thorough? Do you think people want to do? Yeah, I think they're getting there now, to be honest. Morrison, if you look at AWS, they got a product called AWS, and I got a video on it. AWS config, and in there it has all the compliance checks. So it'll actually do the audit. Usually 20% of your audit is manual, but 80% of that is definitely, you can definitely do that. And my man just already ahead Tenable. Because you can load your compliance scans up in Tenable, and that's going to do your Oracle, your Apache, your website. It's going to give you your findings, right? So a lot of that's automated, right? The part that's not automated is when you got to write your policies and procedures, your incident response, your configuration management. There's still a lot of writing. To be honest, and I'm playing with, I'm gonna see if I can train Chat GPT to write it for a specific company if you put in there. So I was watching Chat GPT 4.0. I was mesmerized, but we're gonna talk about that in another video. So I'm gonna see if I can get Chat GPT to do that for. So now you're doing that currently. Pen testing, that's more of a Gabe Alpha Cyber, but there's a ton of. Once again, I used to teach. So in Cali, there's a ton of pen test tools out of the box you can just hit. Really, that's going to get you 60%, right? I always call that the script kiddie of pen testing. I can run some basic stuff and come out with a nice report. Now, that might not test everything, but it looks good from my report, right? I always remember compliance and security are two different things. You could be secure and not compliant, and you could be compliant and not secure, right? So, are there IT staff in legal? No, a lot of times legal gets comfortable with IT because they look at the contract so much. So I've seen a lot of lawyers specialize in IT contracts. If you Google Amazon Azure and Google, Amazon, and Azure, those are the three. They actually have legal firms out there, and we talked about that, that'll help you negotiate contracts to get your savings up and your costs down. Most of them, you got to be over 2 or 3 million, but once you get over that benchmarks, you can get legal to negotiate. Now, once again, I worked at big companies. Usually, they have legal on staff, and they just get good at it, right? They comes the RP guy or the IRS pub or the NIST attorney. They just get to seeing it so much. So I never see IT staff in legal. I've seen legal definitely comfortable with IT contracts. Usually they just lawyers. Usually they just lawyers. Are you wild? Yeah, I just got lucky, Ken. I was at the spot. Because I was in the age where you kind of did IT and cybersecurity as apprenticeship. So you had to be a junior programmer before you're a programmer. Then a programmer, you were an analyst. And after analyst, you were a DBA. Then after DBA, you were web or application admin. Then you might go to networking, or you started from networking and went to disk, configuring your disk, right? You have Cisco network, and you have VMware. So like you kind of went on that infrastructure side. So you kind of worked your way through it. Now you can get a cert and be like, voila, I'm there. In the old days, you had to work your way up. So I really love programming the most, but I just way more money doing security than I do programming. And to be honest, programming gave me PSTD for a minute because you put stuff in production and it don't work. You get yelled at. So, so production, and it's every day now. If you miss your Cisco routing, right, you can take a whole network down. But once it's set. Programming, you always adding features and functions. So it's do you know any good tech recruiters? I had to touch a few people. Everybody I was messing with casuals kind of they're retiring. To be honest, when I go, I just usually get on Indeed. I usually just pick the jobs I want because my search is gonna be super niche down. I'm usually gonna do NIST, IRS Pub 1075. I might do some disaster recovery from a federal level. I might do FISMA with STIGs casual. So my searches are super detailed. So I usually just drive it from a search on Indeed, to be honest. But like I said, I'm old, so I kind of fit in a super um, niche category. Specifically, more on the pen test portion is the findings stay on the network. Does um Yeah, everything's on the network at a certain level, but usually, we usually we just moved them. We used to have them on a super safe Linux NAS drive that you had the VPN that's going to MFA and it's only going to let certain people on the subnet, right? So even if you got on there, if you didn't have the VPN username, then you had to have your regular credentials. Then you had to have your MFA. Now they want you to have an MFA, which calls your phone and a YubiKey. So we getting kind of crazy with it for us. And so yeah, now we putting them in teams. You can do your work area, and in your work area, of course, you can say who has there. And two is we want to make that work area. They're working on to make it do a MFA for when you get into the work area, just not when you log on the network. They want you to do it twice. Because if that gets hacked, right, that tells you really how to hack. The findings tell you your vulnerabilities, right? So our compliance standards written as policy within software. Yeah, big companies are going to use Archer is the 800-pound gorilla. That's the Splunk of GCR software. Once again, I left a big organization was using. So in there, they have everything. They got your policies, your exceptions, your devices. They have like your vulnerabilities can go in there. And so Archers has the ability, but once again, you got to be super careful with your vulnerabilities. And two is we get vulnerabilities for vendors too. So I've seen forensic IT guys and legal. Yep, I've seen that too, just not a ton. That game, you can be secure and not comply. No, that's true. That's true. I've seen compliance where we scan and we didn't pass, and I told them like, this is what we doing, right? This is why this is more secure than that, right? So, but once you're in this game long enough, you know how to meld those two together, right? So you can be compliant and secure, right? You get people, especially junior auditors, they don't understand that. Oh yeah, that GPT, man, that level, that GPT-4 was beautiful. What's up, first gen? Shout out to him. That's the game. You can be secure. Right. Let's see. First gen in the house. Glad you could join me. Let's get back on there. Once again, we just doing stuff that's legal and review, right? That you're gonna do when you're gonna need to do privacy laws, right? That's the big deal. Privacy laws are different in security. A lot of times they're privacy laws and security, but they're two separate things. Privacy laws for information security are laws and regulations that govern the collection, storage, and use of disclosure of personal information by organizations that use IT systems. The laws are designed to protect privacy and security of individual personal information. GDPR is the big one, which is weird because that's actually a European law that a lot of states are actually taking that up, which is a pain for companies I've worked for. The regulations are implemented in the European Union in 2018, set strict rules for collection, storage, and the use and disclosure of personal information of EU citizens. Their big thing there is what are your cookies doing, and when you delete stuff, it's got to really be deleted. If you ever deleted your Facebook, when you went back in, it says, "Do you want your stuff back?" Meaning they marked you for deletion. They just didn't delete your stuff, right? So Cali was actually doing GDPR, but a lot of companies were pushing back since we're out of Europe. So they came up with their own privacy laws, which is a pain. This law was implemented in Cali in 2020, gives consumers the right to know what personal information is being collected about them, the right to the request to their information to be deleted, and the right to opt out of sale of their information. Which everybody here knows because this is really a pretty technical audience is. Let me keep going. Health and HIPAA, Health Insurance and Portability Act. This law was implemented in the United States in 1996, which is old, man. They need to upgrade that. HIPAA is kind of weak now. I ain't gonna say kind of is. Personal Information Protection and Electronic Document. I was calling it PIPE DBA. This law was implemented in Canada in 2001. Since I've been studying for CISP, you gotta know these for even in different countries. These laws and regulations help to ensure organizations using IT systems handles personal and information responsibly and with respects. Because people get hacked every day, people's stuff gets stolen every day. So people believe the United States is not taking security serious. So you see on there, these are different privacy laws around the world. The big deal, and I might look that up at the end of that, is privacy directors are different than the cybersecurity directors. If you're Amazon, their privacy directors and specialists was making 300,000 because Amazon is around the whole world. So you got to understand all these laws, and we call them harmonizing them. Which which one is more stringent? GDPR. We're gonna go with GDPR, right? Or this information can't leave the United States and go over here. So privacy is one of the hot things a lot of people are not aware of, because if you're a global company, you got to be able to handle all that. And you got to handle all that with your legal staff. A lot of legal guys are actually switching to privacy because privacy is paying better than legal, right? So that's one of the hidden gems, and I probably talk about that on another stream. But yeah, privacy directors, because if you're General Motors, because they got stuff in Mexico, they got stuff in Europe, and once again, you got to understand. And now we hooking everything to the internet, right? So you got to figure out those privacy laws and harmonize them once again across the world. Oh, that's my. I've been looking through some of the NIST 800. Do any of the compliance regs have templates? So there's a little bit plug and play action. Yeah, if you actually go, if you look at the back of NIST 853, they had a few templates. And if you go to NIST 800 SP special publication, which means they have a special publication for web servers, databases, incident response. If you look at incident response, they have templates. The SSP system software, I think that's 861. They have templates for SSPs, and cheat code. I'm going to give you more. Some cheat code is anything with NIST, AWS actually has to comply with. They actually show their system security plan because it's shared responsibility. So a lot of times you can get them from AWS or FedRAMP. FedRAMP is NIST 800 really in the cloud, and all the cloud providers has to go to the FedRAMP. It's on fedramp.gov, Morrison. They have a ton of templates on there. They got templates from everything. So fedramp.gov has templates once again for incident response, configuration management. I think it has spot templates for the 20 families in this 853 R5. So go check out FedRAMP.gov. I love GDPR as an individual, but nah, facts, facts. But what's to get? You can get it back. So one of my things is I might do a GDPR, a NIST, and a CCPA class from a GRC and privacy, because I think you could go in as a junior person, because all the policies you can write as a junior security person, right? The senior person is gonna make sure the content is legal, but I think you as the framework can get that written. You and Gerald on Simply Cyber has his GRC master class, so you would use those auditing techniques in NIST, CCPA, and GDPR. Privacy's paying better than legal. Yep, but Ken, go check it out. We might look at it at the end. We can look it up. Yeah, I've seen privacy people, especially for big companies, 250. It's just such a niche. I don't think people got into. What's up, NC worker? Any future legislation privacy we should be concerned? Yeah, they just did one on I'm about to do a video on it. They did a new privacy law because they're gonna ban TikTok. And when they ban TikTok, they start making it broad enough where they can ban any software on your phone that they don't deem as safe. As a cybersecurity professional, I understand protecting the government, but I don't like when the government tells me what I can put on my phone. If I want my phone unsafe, right? So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that first. And I think it's called the Restrict Act. It's kind of slid in there. A lot of people ain't hip to that. So they actually voted on that in Congress. I think it's going to pass. I think it's a little overreaching first. It's funny you mentioned that. So I think it was 55 pages. I've read the 55 pages. I got about 5 or 6 slides. So I'm debating if I'm going to do it first, Jen. So I think I'm going to do it now since you asked about how is privacy different from compliance and legal. Privacy usually is more about the individual person's data. Usually, when you talk about compliance, we usually talking about NIST. We talking about HIPAA, FERPA. They usually talk about corporations, and they add you in as an afterthought. Because NIST 800 has been out for 10 years. They just added the privacy piece 5 years ago. There could be stuff that you ask for privacy. I could say you can only have cookies, be active for 48 hours of tracking. That has nothing to do with legal, right? And if you look at compliance, I don't think any compliance except NIST really talks about cookies and how long you do it, because cookies track you across the internet, right? So that's kind of at a high level the differences is, right? Usually when you talk about compliance, they're usually focusing on a person, sliding them in there. Legal, if it's not in law, right? Law is always behind technology, right? Shout out Elon Musk is doing Neuralink, man. He put stuff in people's brain. Ain't no law for that. Ain't no law for that yet, Devin. So the legal's always behind me. What's up, Helmet Chili? Salute. Can you recall specifics concerning what federal IT ramp up has to? Can you recall specifics concerning what federal IT ramp up has to achieve by next year? I believe. They're really focusing on federal's always ramping up, but their big thing is zero trust from a technology standpoint, and that's really shout out to the CNA guys. Networking firewalls usually did security from north and south traffic, right? So if I got on your subnet, usually if you got 15 web servers on your subnet, once the firewall let me on your web server subnet, I can go east and west and affect any of your subnets, right? Zero trust says if I get on your subnet, each one of those VM boxes or EC2s, if you're on AWS, should have a firewall around them where I can't go east and west, right? So that's their workloads. And if you go on my page, I actually have some zero trust videos. So that's one of the big things. And like we talked about, the Restrict Act and them trying to secure phones. And the other big deal that kind of made me a little nervous is the federal government's trying to protect companies in the United States. So a year ago, there was all these vulnerabilities on web servers. The FBI just closed them out. They came inside your organization and patched your servers. I'm not cool with that because that patch could have broke something else, but for them, they were securing the United States, right? So where does that line? So I think those are some of the big things they're trying to figure out, Guillermo. Meaning, why would they be separate? They should be. They should not be separate. But what happened, Devin, is they came out once again. They compliance came out, heavy first. I think privacies are trying to catch up. So I think since privacy was kind of catching up, they separated them. And two is I think one reason they separated privacy a lot of times is company was all cool locking down their servers, but they really didn't give a shit about your data. So I think the federal separate them so they can focus on each one individually to drill down to customers. Now, if you got a security program, if you're doing this to federal, they are all together. But most companies are so far behind, and most companies still work in silos, Devin. And I work for big organizations and big companies. There's still a lot of silos organizations. So that's one reason they did that, because of the silos on there. Do you prefer federal IT jobs or private sector? Um, that's a good question. I pauses. I I enjoy private sector more. Um, they're usually a little more focused, a lot more. The pay is better, but my niche, because I mastered it, is NIST and stuff. Now, a lot of times I work for private company that are trying to do Fed work, right? Because Fed uses AWS, right? They gave 9 billion between AWS, Azure, Google, and Oracle. All of those are private company trying to get federal jobs, right? So I work in the private sector, but I understand federal work. So that's really how I make my money, right? Because if you're a federal NIST, once again, I specialize in IRS Pub 1075. I worked for Department of Revenues for a decade, so I just sum my I think the ramp up is concerning compliance. Yeah, it is, but the the weird thing is the federal government's kind of got their they I think they feel decent, not super great, but I think they saying you have to do this so we can find you. What are you doing with private companies? I see a lot of private companies mishandling data, right? That they don't report to any government agency. So how do you do security of I'm just auto mechanic shop? Most cars now you can remotely start them, remotely cut them off, virus them. You could cut a virus. You could take over Tesla and drive it into a crowd or up a building. What security requirements are on those companies? The federal government is trying to figure that out now, right? Because once again, they're late. So they're late. So I think that's how do you get that federal private partnership. And if you look at Biden's statements and stuff, he that's what he's trying to figure out. I did one of his last executive. I did a live on that. He's trying to figure out. He actually put that in there. The public and privacy working together. Because if there's an attack on a nation state, they're going to go from federal to private business. But if they're not communicating, how are you going to stop it? How are you going to curtail it? And that's one reason they worried about TikTok. They're on 100 million phones, man. So what if they let a virus out on 100 million phones in the US and half the people connecting their phones to their work? Freedom of Information Act allows regulators that provide individuals with the right to access information from public bodies or government agencies. Freedom of information laws can apply to information that are held in digital form, email, databases. In many cases, the same rules apply to paper. Federal Information Act was created in 1966, provides individuals with the right to request access to records held by federal agencies. Once again, I worked at the federal government. There's people that come and ask for information. Some of it's good, some of it's just people just out there, right? But it's their request. So we need to be able to handle that from a cybersecurity request. What can we release out to the public, but not giving out people's personal information, right? Access to information from Canon 83. Scotland has one in 2002, allows help to promote transparency. You want transparency, accountability, government and public bodies. So that's cool. ACLU is always requesting public information. So it's a good thing. It could be a pain, but definitely a good thing. I'm on Linux and in the dev ops side, but realize security is paying more than dev. I got 4 videos, Winslow. If you go on my site, I did 4. The next level that is DevSecOps, right? Once again, if you're on AWS, how do you secure the pipeline? So when you check something in, you should have it scanned for viruses and malware, right? You should have developers sign their code because say it's Russia put bad code in there so they can hack the pipeline. So if I sign it, if somebody puts some code in there and it's not signed, right, we know it shouldn't be there, right? So that's DevSecOps, Winslow. When you once again you build stuff, you're scanning it, you're peer reviewing it. They actually have artificial intelligence to look for errors in your code. Once again, when you check it in, you're signing it. You make, and two is you looking for the OWASP top 10. That's basic cross-site scripting, cross-site exjection, cross-site forgery, right? Those are some common checks you need to do from application security, which is purple team. If you heard a red team, blue team, purple team's in the middle. That's really how I got started as a developer, making sure code could pass a FISMA and a DOD compliance check. That's how I learned to lock down code, right? So DevSecOps is the next version to get security in there. If you Google that, Indeed, you can see those guys make 150 to 210. Right. So my comeback in engineering, I think, is going to be in DevSecOps with a little privacy together. So, and I don't know. So, and there's a couple people on YouTube that does DevSecOps. That's kind of a hidden gem. A lot of people aren't hip even still to DevSecOps. I think when not if cyber war commences in full effect, it will be cure patch devices all over. True, but cyber war is going on every time, right? Because we're doing reconnaissance, right? They're scanning us, we're scanning them. If you look, Russia was in our electric grid for 2 years before we kicked them out, right? So there's always cyber incursion. What they try not to do is, and they actually brought this up on 60 Minutes, is what is the line cross where you do a cyber attack and I actually send missiles, right? And there's a couple United States presidents says, if you do this, we would go kinetic. We can put boots on the ground. So what is that, right? So if I scan your website, you probably won't shoot missiles. I'm on your network, but I didn't shut anything down. You just saw my IP address. I'm copying up a couple files, right? So, but what is the line where I punch you electronically and you send a missile, right? So that's always the case. I remember the ramped up is called, oh yeah, FedRAMP. Yeah, I do that all the time. Yeah, check out. I was telling somebody go to fedramp.gov. They have a ton of templates out there for you to use. Because really, FedRAMP is just NIST 800-53 in the cloud for cloud service providers. They said you have to meet this, then we could put government workloads in AWS, Azure, Google, or Oracle. Shout out to Oracle. They got part of that $9 billion. I did a video talking about the $9 billion awarded by the United States and those 4 vendors. As you do work, you can bill for it. As you win, like you said, master's statement of work from each in the Navy, Army, Air Force, right? You get that FedRAMP. 9 billion with a big B, right? So I appreciate that. Big thanks for always good, Winslow. Thanks for supporting me, man. I think the lines has not been drawn. No, it hasn't. They're trying to figure it out, Guillermo. Because you don't really want to get people shooting missiles, but the thing that the internet did and cybersecurity did and hackers did is all people on the stuck next is when Israel and us blew up Iran's nuclear power plant so it couldn't make nuclear material. Iran upgraded their cybersecurity division and started attacking us. Then they figured out we don't need to spend billions of dollars on planes and jets and submarines. We could take you out electronically, right? So now each small country, South Korea, they steal $100, $200, $300 million from banks every year to fund their whole country. So you don't have to be a military force. You can be a cyber force, right? And still attack other countries. E-discovery is something kind of new. Is a process of identifying, collecting, and producing electronic information. So on Teams or whatever you're doing, you're creating documents, RFPs, MSAs, NDAs, right? You got to keep all that stuff. And certain states says you got to keep emails and stuff from the executive suite for 10 years. So you can do e-discovery on it, right? So it's often used context for litigation or regulation. In the realm of information technology, e-discovery involves use of specialized tools because we're all in these, you see it, email servers, file system, database, and electronically. If you need to bring this stuff to court, how can you do it? Because there's information all over the place now. So e-discovery, you got identification, preservation, collection, analysis, you reviewing it, production. So a lot of times as you write these stuff, they want you to label them, then they can figure out what bucket of security is that sensitive, top secret, secret, non-sensitive. So you got to label that stuff so e-discovery can figure out where it goes, right? So data collection, data transfer, data processing. If you need it in the case, document review for your attorneys, then you're gonna need to terminate it, meaning erase it, right? Because you only need to keep it for so long. And right, identification, once again, preservation, collection, processing, review, and production. Documents are exchanged with opposing counsel, right? So a lot of times you got to provide them more FOIA. You can use this on FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. Certain large state agencies and divisions and starts that state agencies have to be able to come up with these documents, right? So you as organizations got to label them and make sure you have them available in case you go to court, right? So let's see. I do front end. Wow, that's cool, man. Yeah, I do it from I review from RFP. So vendors coming in, if they're doing IRS or HIPAA, doesn't really have to be FedRAMP. There's certain government agencies have to be FedRAMP, right? So that means their software has to be approved, goes through a third party, 3PLs, right, to come out and get that. Oh, congratulations. I do a ton of AWS. That's why I got my AWS certs. I would take your AWS cert. They actually have a AWS cloud security cert. It's pretty good. So it shows you how AWS does security. I actually have that cert. I would say 40% of my reviews, RP or RPs in the cloud. Most vendors now, they're in AWS, Azure, or a combination of both. So you're right. So I've been trying to get comfortable with AWS because they were 800-pound gorillas. So I have a few videos on AWS security net if you want to look in my through my archive. So I got DevSecOps. So yeah, so I'm trying to like you said, my next 10 years, because I'm 55 plus, is my next 10 years cloud security, then I'm retired. So that's gonna be my last bag. So, let's see. Leaders are nervous about what they don't understand always, but good leaders get good people to talk to. I wonder about all those national incidents training room. Oh yeah, planes colliding are due to other nations. No, I think that's true. I think if it's not true, especially the trains, I worked with the Department of Homeland Security. They are investigating that highly, right? So no, that's one of the things. And I've got videos where you do incident response test, right? Train, they should actually, we call it tabletop. They should have said, okay, if this train has a derailment and this has this type of chemicals, where's the manifest at? Because some of that stuff you can't put out with water. It's called a chemical manifest. Where can you get it at? If somebody calls us, they need to be able to get that online. If there's a big accident, you got to call the president and get him out the bed, right? Then two is I would have done a big state and a little state. Big state has hazmat material, but if you're in some small podunk, you got to get with Department of Homeland. I think they did TSA and some others. So you got to work with all those organizations with your private company to get that handled. So from a NIST, you got to practice that basically, right? That's one thing from a cybersecurity perspective. People don't realize incident response is just not computers. It's that type of incidents, right? They practice, okay, we need to get a helicopter to get the president and our people out there. What's that play? Do we got one on standby? Is there a private jet in the company we can, or we got one on lease? So those are all the things. Because if you wait to figure that out, you would never figure that out. So you should have a checklist that you go through and run those scenarios. Is a security clearance needed in compliance? If you in federal, when I worked for DOD, I had everybody in DOD has to have a security clearance. When I worked for a Fortune 500 pharmaceutical company, no, I did not have a security clearance. I had an FBI background check, but that's different than a security clearance. If you work in, once again, DOD, Department of Homeland Security, any big, large federal, they're gonna want you to have a a security clearance. The crazy thing is, I had a knack, which is actually low, and I didn't even realize. My boss realized. He's like, "Dude, you in a production? What?" I said, "I got a knack." He was like, "Go get an SSB, which is a secret." My boss had a top secret polygraph where they actually hooked him up and did a polygraph, right? Because there's certain buildings you can't go into. You can't go in a Pentagon unless you got a polygraph. There's like 3 or 4 buildings you gotta have like a top secret polygraph. You just can't have a top secret. But yeah, I had a knack, and I had a what they call a provisional secret. Is it just an IT college students going through the motions? Is is just an I is just an IT student going through the most? Are you just an I? Is just an IT student going? Are you saying, Chris? Are you saying you're it, or you just going? Give me a little more on that. Let's see. I will most definitely search your channel for AWS. I got another 30 years to work. And you get an IT, you can get a little real estate. We talk about that on Women in Linux. Go check them out if you're not. Women in Linux be doing it big, and they do a ton of cloud security. And they do containers, right? So I've done EC2, which is Linux. I'm actually working on serverless. Really, where you want to be, and the top is Docker and Kubernetes, right? Everybody's going to Docker, containers, and Kubernetes in the cloud, right? So that's really where you want to get to and get the master of that. Shout out to the SSBI. I filled out the paperwork. I'm getting. Maybe it was what path in GRC would you recommend for someone who has 1 year in SEC experience doing enterprise phishing, security awareness, and third-party assessment? I have a BS in. I would take Gerald Simply Cyber. He has a super low Master GRC class. Then they have a CGRC Plus that's hot now, a certification. I would get that, and I think you'll be off and running. What do you do now? I guess you said, oh, you got 1 year in. Um, I would get that CGRC. It just came out. They renamed something in CompTIA. That's the new hot GRC. I would get that. Then whatever company you're at, I would see if you could start doing stuff in that department. I don't know if you work for a small company or a little company. Everybody has policies and procedures, though. Um, Hopefully they're doing something like NIST 800, CIS. Is a common business benchmark. CMMC if you're doing DoD for private. NIST 171 is commercial compliance. So I would get that CGRC certification. Look at Gerald Simply Cyber. He has a nice masterclass GRC to get your feet wet. Then I would just start reading NIST, or I would read NIST, and then I would figure out what compliance your company's using. Shout out to the SSBI. Yep, I filled that out. Also have cloud. That's a good start right there, man. You winning. A lot of times too is tell them that you can assist them with their cloud security reviews, because a lot of companies are skipping. Any software to touch your network, you at least should do a high level compliance review, and they might let you start doing that because a lot of people don't have enough resource, and a lot of people don't know what that is. Oh yeah, skips are a mess. I haven't seen one of those before. Yeah, 100%. It's secure enough to get sponsored for a security clearance. I mean, if you have no experience, no. If you do Security Plus and you read NIST or you get good with Splunk, you're gonna need Security Plus with a specialty to get a security clearance, because you're gonna need a security company or the. Let me roll that back. If you're trying to get with a consulting company, it won't be enough. If you go work for the federal government, which is not going to pay you as much as private, but they they're searching for security people so bad. If you go work for a Fed in each state, you might be able to get a federal long story short, DFAS is the Department of Defense. There's one where I live at. It's a federal. I actually work for a consulting company, and I was doing Oracle back then. My key was Oracle was super high database, and that was my specialty. So, Devin, a lot of times to get somebody to pay for a security clearance, you got to give them a specialty so they can bill it out because that's like $20,000 to get a security clearance. So they want to be billing you at a certain rate to help you get a clearance. Let me know if that makes sense. So focus on Kubernetes, that across all clouds. I will look at Docker's. Kubernetes super hot. Yep, Kubernetes is on every version, every cloud version. AWS, Google, and Azure has their version of Kubernetes. But yeah, if you understand it, that will be hot. Go to Indeed and Google that, Nettie. You'll see all the flow. It'll flow all up for that. In fact, DOD wouldn't even pay you any mind with facts. Like I said, I got there because I work for a consulting company. Consulting company put me on site and they paid for my security clearance. I had to tell them I worked for them for 2 years. That wasn't, it seemed like they should be staying in a skiff as a tendency of walking out when you. The problem is with the skiff is, and I agree with that probably till the last 5 years is, the skiffs can't find good security people because they pay decent. Amazon paying basic people. I interviewed for a mid-level job. I didn't get it. I gotta get a little more experience on the cloud. A mid-level job was 366 with stock options. You can't pay anybody to skip that much, Guillermo. That's the problem. Well, now, granted, they laying off a ton of people, and I think they were hogging talent on purpose, but those big four, they were out paying. I mean, that would have doubled my salary. I make 6 figures, but that would have doubled that. I would double this shit going. Amazon, I think it was base was 150, bonus was 56, and you get stocks options every year of $67,000. It was crazy. The government but you can't pay. Government can't pay that much. Oh, shout out to Hargan. There aren't really any frameworks at the moment. So, those are good frameworks. If you do HIPAA and high trust, you would kill it, man. Because if you could do a HIPAA high trust, you could do NIST, you could do FERPA, you could do CJIS for FBI. So if you get on, especially high trust is their version of NIST trying to get caught up. So that's a good move, man. If you can get HIPAA and high trust, because there's always hospitals be hurting. So now if you can get HIPAA and high trust from a security perspective, you off and running. It's based on the need to know and job facts. Once again, I was web admin and I couldn't get to ring 0 on Linux where they had to search, right? The system administrators could get there, right? I could get to a lot of places, but I need to know I didn't need to get to there. So now facts. The pay rate federal is low, so low. Well, it's relative. Now, when I left, now I don't want to sound elitist. They offered me a 13. The pay ranges are big because I think 13 was like what from 88 to 140. Because it's like what? Because it's like GS 13, and there's what 13 steps in each one of those. So if you get a 13, because I was the doc, I don't want to dox him. He was talking about. I'm like 13 that's pretty decent. So now depending on where you at, like I said, DOD 13, you can get in the 6-figure range. But once you go 13, that's kind of the top of the tech. 14, you got to be a manager. So if you work on a secret network as an admin, will you require a TS? Yeah, most definitely. Yep. Makes sense. Cool. Within the first 4 years of your IT career, will it make sense to go after the job title or the money? Depends on what you need. They kind of go together, but probably I would say job title because a lot of times people pay you per your job title, which is weird. because they look for certain keywords. The weird thing, though, I shouldn't say this on the line. I changed my job title to what I wanted to be. When I get on my, because usually I've been at my contracting and I don't rotated to so many other companies, or sometimes even though I'm working at a main company, I might help some guys on a side project. So Devin, I shouldn't tell you this. I just changed to what I want. One day I'm a senior federal compliance analyst. One day I'm a senior federal engineer. One day I'm a senior privacy engineer. So I just changed it on the resume what I want it to be. I'm just old. I just think people trust me like that. So yeah, I just changed it to whatever the job description. One day I'm an engineer, analyst, compliance, federal SME dude. I just want to get into cybersecurity. Just keep grinding, man. It's not easy. Like I said, I just fell in the mine by accident, right? And I think people are gatekeeping a little bit. So I think you're doing the right things, AO. You just got to get your chance. And I think two is, and I need to reach out. And I think that's where this space is lacking. And I'm going to challenge Keep It Techie, Struggle Security, Gabe, Alpha Cyber, Tech G. There's just so many good talents. We need to be putting together projects so people can actually do those online and use them as experience, right? I can set up a company, have somebody work with me to do the policies and the procedure, do incident response tests, do a COOP test, do act as an ISO, have my man was talking about coming in and doing a penetration test. I could set it up on AWS, use compliance, set up my firewalls, and have him come and do a penetration test of my company to make sure it's right. Write up the vulnerabilities, right? Write up the report. Gabe's been in this things as long as I am, right? He's a director, right? So he should be able to look on those to check those off. We each have a specialty, so we need to be setting up big projects so people can use that as experience to go get jobs. Because if you can walk through what you've done and how we set it up and give you templates for policies and procedures for HIPAA and high trust, right? You can use those for job experience. So I think that's kind of what's lacking in this space, right? It's cool to get the cert, it's cool to get this, but you need to, when you do something to employers, they want to say, well, I did this for 6 months. I was doing at PBO's company. Here's the write-up. Here's his architecture. Here's his system security plan. This is the stuff I created. We did it with the FedRAMP templates, right? This is a federal ATO authority to operate. I know all of them buzzwords for NIST, right? So then you could put that on your resume with the check bullets, right? Shout out to Gerald and his master GRC. When you do his modules, he gives you what to put on your resume, but I think we need to do it at a bigger level and as a bigger project, right? So once again, I'm too much talking. I need to start doing some stuff. So let me go through. Well, let's see. I almost done. RFPs. Everybody request for proposal. It's just a documentation that's sent out uh, for by organization to solicit proposals for qualified vendors. It's used to identify potential vendors and their capabilities. Process to enable organizations to select the best vendors. So as part of that, right, you can have your company. I put an RFP. I can have you respond before you do the work, right? So now you're doing the management and the business and the technical, right? You put them all together. Right? That's gonna make you a well-rounded person. That's gonna get you paid into the bag when you have all those skills, right? You'll be a baby PBO. No, I'm just joking. But no, that's the skills we need to be getting, right? The RFP, request for proposal. Q is for a quote. And RFI a lot of times is they don't really know what they want, so they send out a proposal for information. You will say this is what you can do for those. Then that'll help with RFI, help you write an RFP, right? Sometimes it's so new they only like, well, what are we asking them to do, right? So they do a request for information. Really is like, what can you do for my company? When you explain them, then they put an RFP out for you to bid. So I think that was the last slide. Let me go back up to the top. Get back on those questions. Let's see. This one, I feel you. Don't just keep grinding, man. Just keep grinding. It's tough though. They are not training cybersecurity managers that the IT piece. DoD has a tendency to separate actual security from computer network, separation of roles. It should, yeah, and a lot of people, what they done is, and I think I have an MBA. It's the MBA problem is you could be a manager and not understand the details of what you're doing because you're managing people, right? Which security is cool, but if you don't understand what your consultants and contractors are doing, right? That's why people like Struggle Security, myself, Tech G, a lot of they want consultants on site because managers don't understand that piece, right? I've done IRS and NIST for 10 years. So I assist managers in doing that as a consultant, right? So the consultant comes in and hopefully train your managers. But a lot of times consultants just managers just say, do your thing, PBO. Okay, right. So, but you're right. So, and I just think that's how the MBA training is I'm a security manager. I'm managing the people, I'm managing the budgets, right? So let's see. Shout out to I'm a supervisor, just 13. I pay a low rate. But yeah, but aren't you going through your steps though? Are you a step one? You don't have to get too personal, right? Because aren't there 11 steps? Yeah, let me drop the link while see if anybody want to come up. So yeah, but yeah, so because when I was gonna think they want to give me a 13 step six, but I think that would have got me in six figures. I remember the steps, right? It's been a minute. It's been a minute. I ain't worked in DOD in 10 years. So how have you built your presentation skills assigned from YouTube to your career? I taught for 10 years. That actually helped me. And the other thing is, which I hated at first, is I was very good technically. So the guys, and I'm gonna have him on my channel. He was a 14, super cool guy. He was like, "When you came up with that, it was before Git. It was Oracle check in and check out. So I designed a product. I had to train the developers and show their supervisors. So I actually got on the skills training. So between teaching, I taught for 10 years at a community school. Then I was teaching all the executives, and I would have special projects, and I would have to teach the developers. I was actually driving around in different states and teaching like 20 and 30 people, right? It was trainer. So that's actually how I got it. Once again, but just brute force. That's cool. I'm that's in my pipeline. I need to figure out. Everybody likes that. That would be huge if you guys set that up. The crazy thing is, I need to reach. I don't think it'll be that hard. Mm. Especially if we do it in the cloud, I can spin up EC2s. Then it's just the process, right? We're gonna go through the FedRAMP process. Gabe's gonna go through the red team penetration because that's what he does for your companies. You scan, you get the vulnerabilities, you write it up, you rank the vulnerabilities, you get your risk register with your vulnerabilities, right? We can flow that into Splunk. So I mean, I think you can really spin that up. So fact this projects facts those projects make all the difference. Talking about the levels of the projects is huge, especially if you can automate. We're gonna automate. Yep, Ansimo's big. Yeah, I usually uses CloudWatch's AWS version of Ansible. They got something called System Manager too with Docs. So they have their version. Ansible is probably better because it's cloud agnostic. I want to be all in on AWS, so I was just learning this stuff. Once again, I got 4 AWS certs. Uh, Shout out to that. That's the link if anybody wants to come up. Oh my God, it's 11:30. Yes, step still 10 still. So oh come on, you killing it. Only 7% of people make six figures. Netta, what are you talking about? I know it feels like everybody makes six figures on YouTube, but if you Google it, it's only 7%. I know only 7% of brothers make six figures. I haven't looked at the number for the black women, but I know it's only 7% of brothers make that. So you killing it. I know I shout out to Black Heights and Women in Linux. They be talking about 200 and 300. The average person only makes 52,000. Yeah, $52,000. Don't let this space fool you. So yeah, I think that's gonna be. I see. I got a lot of likes, and every time I get passionate on my soapbox about that project. So I think that's what I'm gonna start kind of scoping out for this summer. I feel you. I feel you. I thought I made money till I talked to Black Heights and women in Linux. Now I feel poor because I feel you. I've been making six figures for the last 15 years. Now I feel poor, man. This space be confusing me. Oh, facts, Winslow, 100%. That's the future. I'm just worried with automation. I'm not as dire as Dr. Dix, but he believes it's going to be a whole useless class because a lot of stuff's going to get automated. I think it's going to take a little longer than that, but there's a ton of people I believe is going to get automated out of a job. And if you don't have tech skills, I don't think they're gonna let you back into the workforce. Because when you get a certain age like me, if you're not doing a lot of value, you could get two younger guys and take PBO out, right? And two is you got to stay current. No matter if you're 20, 30, or 55, you got to stay current. That's why I'm on my AWS grind and my cloud grind. Will you do a full AWS course also? I don't know, Devin. I don't want to promise that. There's a few guys out there that's already doing it and might be more qualified. I just did it from a lecture as I was learning. Um, I'm still debating on that. I'm still debating on that one. Like I said, I was thinking about doing a GRC privacy and add a little AWS, but a full course. Once again, I taught for 10 years at a community college. I taught introduction to cybersecurity. I taught introduction to forensic. I taught Java and I taught business law. I have an MBA, so that's how I got into business law. They needed me to sub. I love business law. So, salute, brother. Love what you're doing. I appreciate you, Afro Nation. Do you think blockchain will change anything? Yeah, I think I think blockchain has a specific niche. I think since crypto sit on top of blockchain, people went wild with that. I think blockchain, especially from a auditing standpoint, because once you put your logs on there or put your whatever you want in there from an auditing, I do a little real estate. Titles are crazy. People are falsifying titles. If you put it on a blockchain with your key, it'll be hard for somebody to forge your title work for your house. So I think auditing stuff, smart contracts, right? And how you can flow that on a blockchain and there's it's history and you can't delete it. So I think there's niches, Devin, that's perfectly suited for blockchain. We just gotta let the euphoria and the crypto roll out of it. So no, I think blockchain, and I played around with AWS says their blockchain, you can use it for free. So I was actually writing Java smart contracts on blockchain. Once again, right, you write it on blockchain, it gives you a key, they link together. So you always have the history. And for auditing, which compliance is a ton of auditing, I think blockchain is the appropriate database for that. I didn't try to run a billion records. I don't know it. I'm assuming if it dealt money, it could scale, but I never try to scale a billion rows on blockchain, Devin. So, but from like I said, certain niches and verticals, especially in finance, blockchain is definitely that. I'll let you take your class. let me let me figure out what I'm gonna do. Second, let me figure out what I want to do. What about an IT mentor? I'm thinking about that, Devin. Which I'm getting old. I just got a little too much on my plate. I need to knock a few things out of my plate. Kind of, like I said, I just been studying. Once again, I was getting my AWS certs. I got to get a CISP and a couple bigger certs because now people are asking me for those. I'm kind of mad because I took the CISP 15 years ago, missed it by 6 questions. I should have took it again and I didn't. I took Security Plus and I should have kept going. So now I gotta go back and revisit that. As my mom say, the old PBO don't memorize like a young PBO. So memorizing all that stuff, which is a lot that's on the screen, is on the CISP. So once again, I enjoy it though. Devin, there's so many people out there doing that that I think are good. Keep It Techies doing his if you're doing Linux. Black Heights, Master Sales Tech, um, Textual Chatter if you're doing SOC work. Tech G. He's doing his mentor program. He's definitely been in the compliance and IT game. He's got the basic certifications. So there's a ton of them in there. So I'm trying to figure it out, but there's guys out there I think are already doing it. So and their stuff is super affordable. So I want to give you a couple names too. I think you should get it 2 or 3 people, right? Usually I work with those guys and they send them to me once they want me to talk to them. So because they usually hold your hand, you can call them every week. So, but let me think about that. That's actually on my list, Evan. I'm just kind of working my channel to a certain level, and like I said, I'm gonna do my certs I need to get. But let me think about that, Devin. Once again, if you got any questions, I'm gonna hang on. I'm like, oh my god, it's 11:30. For some reason, I thought I was gonna do our. So yeah, I'm gonna be here for a little. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of people. I just think Simply Cyber did that with his master GRC class. But once again, I think we need to kind of do like a capstone project where we doing 2 or 3 things and hitting 2 or 3 people to once again make it a program. Policies, procedures, incident response, configuration management. We can have our cloud engineer do EC2s, set up your 3-tier network. We can have some DBAs, set up our database, right? We can have our pen testers test it, any vulnerabilities, right? We can actually do a honeypot, leave some vulnerabilities open so to see if the red team people find those vulnerabilities we left open, right? So you can do it more as a capstone. Then 2 is we can have red team versus blue team getting ref by the purple team in the middle, right? So you can, because people want different skills, different, sir. We can get a Splunk. SIM, where all the data, where you're attacking, all the data goes in the SIM. Maybe we can threat hunt out of there. We can, because DOD, when they do pen testing, they actually give the pen testers basic username and passwords and put them in a conference room. Because we believe you're going to get on the network. You still should be secure even if you get on the network. And part of being on the network is everything is crypted. So even if you're sniffing, you can't read it. And 2 is you leaving, as you attack stuff, you're leaving stuff in the logs. So the threat hunter should be able to figure out you're on our network and start blocking your IPs. But once again, what's up, Calvin? Definitely a day one. Definitely. No, I feel you. I've been MIA too. But yeah, so that's some of the things I've been thinking of mentally. Because like I said, I see these silos. So we need to break down the silos from a certification, testing, education part. Then whatever you want to focus on is that compliance, cloud security, cloud engineering, right? Because you need all of that really secure. So you need to specialize in one area. And 2 is project management. So you really need all those pieces. So I think we need to do kind of like a capstone of everybody's stuff and make it a big project. Then you can put that on your resume as experience. I did a red team exercise, and here's was the architectural design. Here's the system security plan. So, GRC team can write it up. Here's our risk registry. We were using Splunk. Here's the logs. Here was the TPT threat techniques and protocols we were using, right? But once again, I think we need to do it in this space as a kind of capstone project, right? Instead of silos. We got the Linux people and the cloud people and the GRC people, but you don't do security like that, right? You do it as a program, and the GRC people I won't say lead, but directs each individual silo so it works together as one. But that's all I got for tonight. Shoot me an email if you need anything. Professor blackops@gmail.com. I'm on Professor Rules, so give me 48 hours to read your email. I'm usually behind. I got to get caught up at work. I'm so far behind. I don't know what's going on. I'm a little burnt out. I need a vacation. So once the kiddies come back from vacation, PBO is going to Vegas. I haven't been to Vegas in forever. I think Usher's out there. I think he's got an Usher. You're welcome. I think Usher's on what? It's not a residency there. I might try to catch an Usher show. I haven't seen anybody good in about 4 or 5 years. That's it. Like you said, first gen got me thinking. I think I'm gonna do the restrict bill they're trying to pass to block TikTok. They're voting on it in Congress. So I think once again, I read the bill. It's 55 pages. So that's probably gonna be my next video. So once again, go check out my YouTube front page. I've got playlist for HR to security, forensics, compliances. I've done everything from HIPAA, high trust, to FIPS, to NIST 800R4, NIST 800R5, IRS Pub 1075. My goal is kind of do every compliance known to man. I'm going to do MARZ, which I think is social welfare. MARZ 2 is real big. I've done CJIS, which is FBI for state police. I've done pharmaceutical compliances, because I think as a senior, you should understand all of those, at least at a high level. Then, like I said, I specialize on this, FedRAMP, IRS Pub 1075, CJIS. So I specialize on them. Once again, everybody have a happy hump day. Good night. You're welcome. Appreciate it. May need a Discord for that. I've been thinking about it. Everybody got a Discord. Discord was getting hacked a little bit. I got to figure out how to lock it down. They were a little light. They were getting attacked a little bit. Everybody have a good night. I'm out of here. Old guy got to get some rest, man. I'm going to see y'all in these cybersecurity streets. Check out my videos. I got a ton of them. Like I said, I got a ton of AWS. I need to put those in a playlist. I got a DevSecOps playlist out there too, and a Zero Trust. I'm out. Once again, everybody have a good night. See you out in these cybersecurity streets. I'm out.